Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to the infographic show, and the video is American behaviour is considered rude in other countries. And yeah, I mean, the title is pretty obvious. You can tell what the video is going to be about. But I've done similar videos to this before, but this is a bit more in depth into like how... I mean, this isn't like stereotypes. I sort of consider it a similar video, but it isn't stereotypes. So I guess it's a more like a thing that actually happens more, because stereotypes are usually things that people think that happen that aren't necessarily true. But yeah, we're going to see. I don't know what sort of things to expect, but we should jump into it to learn through the video. Hopefully you're going to enjoy. Shout out to my Instagram, my Twitter, links in the description for those who want to follow me. Same for my Patreon, links are there for those who want to see extra reactions that get blocked from YouTube. But let's get into this, man.
The big, brash, rude American. An unfair stereotype made up by non-Americans harboring enmity towards a hegemonic...
Oh, so it is still stereotypes. Oh.
On a culture that has bled into almost every crevice of the world, or an unassailable truth that Americans should take counsel for. The concept of the rude American has been around a while. Mark Twain wrote about the phenomenon of...
It isn't stereotypes, he's just using an example to sort of intro the video.
Loud, gauche American upsetting the locals on his travels, while a novel and later a movie starring Marlon Brando was called The Ugly American. If you are American and watching this, you might take some solace in the fact that the Chinese are making the headlines these days as the world's most badly behaved tourists. The question is, are the Yanks really that bad? That's what
I'm surprised the Brits aren't the worst behaving tourists, to be honest. There's some Brits that are not good with going into different cultures. But I guess it goes to show every country, every culture will have people who have... Not every culture, every country will have people that just behave awfully to other people from other countries. That's just how it is. Again, it's probably like a similar percentage from most countries, but maybe other countries people just travel more, so it seems like it's a lot more.
Find out. In this episode of the infographic show, American behavior is considered rude around the world. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button so that you can be part of our notification squad. If there is one thing Americans, fairly or unfairly, are accused of, it's being too loud. This has been an accusation going around for some time. Is it actually true? Well, a lot of opinion articles out there seem to think so. There is no scientific evidence, however. A story published by the Huffington Post once blamed this loudness on the fact that awareness of how personal actions impact others seems to be a weak point for Americans in general. The loud Chinese tourist groups are said to be partly a result of personal space or lack thereof. But Americans have space, for the most part. Some people take American loudness seriously too. One cafe in Ireland made the headlines in 2014 because of a sign in its window, "No bus/coach or loud Americans. Thank you." This sparked outrage in America, but we might ask if all these quiet objectors have a point. American writer and social critic Hunter S. Thompson may have put the alleged loudness down to privilege, pride, and too much belief in personal power. But in America, perhaps making yourself heard is a-okay. Unfortunately for loud folks, in some cultures it isn't. What many tourists traveling in the USA don't realize is that tipping in some situations...
But I mean, I guess everyone's going to have loud people from their country. Not every person from the US is going to be loud or whatever. Same for people from other countries. But I've only actually met like a few Americans in my life, which is crazy to think about. Like, I've met, I think, like 3 Americans before. I think, from what I can remember. Someone who was playing at football at my park, and then someone who was my grandparents' friend's husband. He was nice, but he was a nice guy. But other than that, that's all I can think of, so I can't really relate or say any sort of way from what I know.
Is not just an act of kindness, but due to low wages, the tips are actually expected. Not tipping in some situations would be plain rudeness. It can also work the other way in other countries. Tipping can be insulting in some cultures, just as walking up to someone in the street and handing them $1 because you thought their shoes were tatty would be insulting. If Americans plan on going to Japan, for instance, they shouldn't tip, rather they should just be polite, and not too loud. In a Japanese restaurant, or using a taxi service, if you try to tip, you'll likely get the money back. Good service is something you deserve in Japan, and handing over money might be perceived as charity. Much of Asia, China, Hong Kong, South Korea, is similar, but the same goes for parts.
Bro, if I got money and I was I was working as a taxi driver, I'm taking all of what I can get, man. fuck with society because I'm getting my money.
If you're in the UK, it might be okay to tip in a high-end restaurant, but throw an extra quid at the barman in a traditional pub, and you'll likely create an awkward moment. Americans are often complimented for their being forthright and outspoken. This has also been called obnoxious. It just depends where you are. In much of Europe, especially restaurants in France and the UK, sending food back is quite extreme. The "customer is always right" adage doesn't work so well in Europe, a continent where, according to The Guardian, Americans have been dispatched from posh restaurants for asking for ketchup or salt with their hot cuisine. Surveys have revealed that 38% of British people would never complain regardless of the state the food was in. In Asia, a continent where loss of face is taken with the utmost seriousness, Americans should be aware that if they do complain, it should be done in a way that doesn't cause harm. You could try and say, "Hi, the food is absolutely delicious, but do you think you could put it under the grill for another 10 minutes?" In 2016, online review community Trustpilot did indeed report that Americans are prone to grumbling, stating that a survey it conducted confirms the American propensity to complain. On to matters of a more sartorial nature.
To be fair, at a restaurant, I don't think I've ever complained. Not necessarily because the food's always good, but because I'm too awkward to like. But have I ever had a situation where I felt like the food wasn't good enough, so I'd have to complain? I don't know. I mean, I grew up on the most basic of food, so I think any restaurant, I'm just happy with the food, nevertheless. But I'm just too awkward to complain or like ask the people serving me the food, could you cook this for another 5 minutes or whatever?
There's a meme making the rounds in which tech billionaires Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg are complimented for their rather informal and unshowy dress code. Americans like to don a pair of flip-flops and a t-shirt now and again, but do this on a date, in a government office, or at a house party in some countries, and it could be perceived as you insulting the person or people you are meeting with. In parts of the developing world, if you have the money, you are expected to wear the money, as some people can't be that fortunate. Never dress down when you have an appointment in Asia, and for women, remember that showing too much skin could be conceived as impolite. In Thailand, for instance, while a backpacker won't get thrown out of a government office for wearing shorts and a tank top, that person's breach of Thai propriety will result in them probably just having a harder time than other tourists in that office. If you don't care, they won't. In 2013, the world's richest man, Bill Gates, was mired in controversy after he apparently disrespected South Korean President Park Geun-hye by shaking her hand with his other hand in his pocket. We already know Gates is not one to stand on ceremony, but his lackadaisical greeting was seen as brazen to the Korean press. Cultural difference or an act of disrespect, asked one newspaper, and Koreans took to social media to mount a show of dismay. Even considering the cultural difference, there is an appropriate manner for certain occasions.
If, like, there was going to be someone met the Queen, I would not give a damn about how you shake her hand and everything. There's obviously a way how it is. Like, I think like you bend down, like you shake her hand. I don't actually know how the handshake is with like the royal family or the Queen, but I wouldn't care. I'd actually be like, you know what? Just shake her hand like she's a normal human being. Go on, just do that. I wouldn't give a damn. But obviously, different cultures have different sort of views on like how people from other cultures treat their culture and respect their cultures, etc. But for me, I wouldn't care. I'd actually kind of rate someone just sort of shaking the hand of the Queen as if she's just a normal human being. You right, mate? How you doing?
Commenter, but to most Americans, such an act was not an act of disrespect, but just being friendly or laid back. Americans value freedom and individualism, while some other cultures value hierarchy, status, and conformity. Speak up, be who you want, says the American, while there's a saying in Japan that says, hammer the nail that sticks out. When in Rome, do as the Romans do is probably a lot more relevant to strict Asian cultures than it is to laid-back Western cultures. Turning up late for an informal appointment might seem like poor form in the USA, and also in Northern Europe, but in other countries you are actually not expected to be right on time. In Spain, for instance, being on time is not seen as such a big deal at all, and certainly something you shouldn't balk at. Being fussy about punctuality might be construed as being difficult offhand. In Thailand, they have what's called Thai time, which means being late for a date or dinner appointment is just accepted as the norm. According to one article, in Argentina, if you turn up on time for a dinner party at someone's house, it'll be seen as you being rather pushy. The article compares it to being an hour early for dinner in America. Moroccans are equally laid back about time. According to some people, they simply don't concern themselves with the matter of punctuality. It's similar in Mexico, India, Indonesia, Greece, Saudi Arabia, Ghana, and Russia, but turn up late in Japan or the UK and you'll nettle someone's ego for sure. Maybe the most amusing fact is that in Brazil,
being on time in the UK is like, you have to be on time for whatever it is. And for someone like me, like back in the day going to school, I was not great at being on time. So you'd get like into a bit of trouble, to be honest, from the teachers. You get like the detentions and stuff. or you'd have to stay longer in the lesson to like catch up for lost work and all that kind of stuff, which is probably fair enough. But I guess maybe in some of these other countries, it's not that much of a big deal. If you miss it, it's on you. Like, yeah. I don't know.
Punctuality isn't a big issue. When they want people to actually be punctual, they say things like 3 p.m. English time. Academics state that there are monochronic and polychronic cultures, those that value orderliness and sticking to plans, and those that take things as they come. Making out in public is probably the one faux pas Americans need to understand. Kissing, or even hugging, in public spaces in some countries is about as shocking to people as actually having sexual intercourse in public in the USA. The general rule to follow here is just don't be intimate or over-tactile with your lover in public all over the Middle East. In Dubai, a city that might look modern, kissing in public could land you in jail. In Indonesia...
Oh my flipping hell. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever go to Dubai because it's a very expensive place, but that's a good thing to know. Kissing in public might get you in jail.
A kissing session in the streets could result in a fine of $29,000.
What?
The same goes for most Muslim cultures, but also in non-Muslim parts of etiquette-heavy Asia, public displays of affection are generally outlawed in a non-legal sense. Holding hands might be acceptable, but anything that might provoke a get-a-room response in the USA would definitely be met with disdain. If loud noise is merely irksome in some cultures, getting it on in public could be a serious offense both legally and in the context of propriety.
Bro, I'm happy I live in a country where kissing someone or hugging someone in public is not going to get you jail time. I mean, I understand that people have different cultures and different beliefs, and that's fair enough. But for me personally, I'm just so happy that I can just not have to worry about getting put into jail or getting a £30,000 fine because of something like that. But again, it's different cultures. Obviously, if I went to these countries, now I know this, I wouldn't even bat an eyelid, man. My girlfriend, you can stay away from me. Walk on the other side of the street. I want to walk alone just to make sure nothing happens.
Always be sure to read the cultural do's and don'ts before visiting any country. Follow this advice and you will certainly have a better experience traveling around the world. To be fair to Americans, we might also remember that they could also be the ones upset at having their own boundaries breached regarding behavior. This could happen when the Asian person doesn't think twice about asking Americans how much money they earn, or asking their age, or telling them that they've put...
Yeah, I guess in like these other countries, they have different ways of doing things, and then things that Americans will get offended by, or things that British people or French people will get offended by, or whoever, they'll be like, wait, why are you asking this? But then it works the other way around. You'll do it to them, they'll do it to you. It's just there's people who obviously don't know certain things will offend people in these other cultures. Sometimes people will probably know this and they'll just be idiots about it, but I feel like 95% of the time, people break these rules or break these sort of, I say break these rules. I guess some of them are actual rules. Like, do these things that are seen as offensive in these other countries, but it'll be an accident. Like,
put on lots of weight and look fat. Okay for them, impolite to the American. Or what about when the Spanish dude turns up 1 hour late for dinner and the meal is ruined? Or when that Chinese girl you started dating got upset just because you showed her some warmth and affection? With this in mind, do you really think it's fair that Americans are called rude or ugly?
So how do people like go on dates in like places like, what's the name, like China? Is it as strict in China, like not being able to hug people, or if you hug people, you kiss someone? I say how do you go on a date? You can still go on a date, but like, how do you greet someone? Like, you don't hug them? Maybe not necessarily just China, but like a lot of the Asian countries. Like, I know some of the countries will be a lot more stricter than others in Asia, but I guess it's just quite a bit stricter there in terms of like things like that. I mean, most Americans hate loud Americans. That's a fair point. You can't pick a trait of a single European country and say it's all... Yeah, that's true, man. That is very true. I think Paul Logan is being described here in 14. Logan Paul, for God's sake. In England, you tip a bartender and they just go, alright, thanks. Yeah, I was thinking, I mean, I don't think no one's going to turn it down in the UK if you're getting tipped. I'd like to urge everyone that sees me on the streets to give me some money if you don't like my clothes. I mean, yeah, if you get given money, just take it, man. Just take it, even if it's seen as like something that you wouldn't want to do in your country. Like, just take it. It's money, man. It's free money. Americans being loud. Ha! You've never met a Latino family and then laughing at stuff. The bull has 5 legs. The bull has 5 legs. And yeah, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. Again, I find these just quite interesting to see. I mean, like I said, every culture has their differences, and every person from different cultures is going to be... every culture is going to have people from that culture who don't treat other cultures right or don't do certain things right. But 90% of the time it's an accident, and 90% of the time it's just a small percentage of people from that country. Again, because the population of the US is so high, it's probably why maybe people see it that way, because there's more Americans travelling. But in actuality, the percentage of Americans doing it and the percentage of British people doing it is probably the same. I mean, British people aren't seen as great in different cultures as well, so I'm actually quite surprised that. I'd actually be interested if there's a video on this to do with British people. British behaviour is considered rude in other countries. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this one. More of these on the way. Suggest some videos you want to see in future, and yeah, until next time, let's subscribe. Peace.